Alright peeps, I've got a new video for you today on Star Trek Online. Now just a disclaimer before we kick this off, I haven't actually had any experience in STO until I started playing about a week ago, and I'm generally hesitant on making a is it worth playing video on MMOs that I just started playing because I don't really have anything to compare the current state of the game to. But that being said, you have the goose guarantee that when I haven't played an MMO before and make this kind of video, I'll put at least 20 hours into it before making the review. So I will have played a good chunk of meaty content. And on top of that, as always, my main goal is to tell you guys if the MMO I'm playing is fun in this current climate of games, or if it is now feeling outdated, crazy grindy, or shares too many typical features of other MMORPGs. Alright, so moving right along, how the heck is Star Trek Online? In my 20-hour adventure, I flew through space, saw a lot of ugly-ass aliens that make me thankful humanity hasn't met aliens in real life yet, and I soaked in the story, one that has captivated audiences worldwide since Shatner was kicking ass as James T. Kirk in the 60s. Now, I've played games like Lord of the Rings Online and EverQuest 2, games that have that way too familiar tab-targeting combat that World of Warcraft is known for. But what kept me hooked to LOTRO specifically was not just the insane experiences I had with my kinsmates.
Mont, can you turn and hit the fire guy a little bit? Mother shit.
Oh, fuck.
But the story, and how an MMO gave the Lord of the Rings storyline a platform to really approach any of the books from the trilogy and mix the players up in it. Yes, there are tons of games for Lord of the Rings, but the MMO format is different in that it allows players to experience the story in a massive world that has to keep getting updated by the developers to keep players interested. So we know over time we can look forward to the devs giving us more narrative and expanding this already huge game world. That's exactly why I decided to start playing Star Trek Online. I knew the game was coming up to a decade old. The gameplay is clearly getting outdated, but what STO has over other MMOs, just like Lord of the Rings, is it's got such a vast sea of source content to feed off of, as well as a good split of gameplay variety between fighting in space and overextending your legs on Earth, which can literally keep this game ticking for decades. Oh, and I also got sick of getting my shit kicked in EVE Online. Honestly, I could be flying the biggest, baddest ship in that game, but when I get into PvP, I get manhandled so bad it feels like I'm flying this the whole time. So I might as well be flying this the whole time I play EVE because my ability in that game is nada! Alright, so as always, we're gonna do a pro section, followed by cons, and lastly, the final verdict. We're gonna start with the fun times, we're gonna start with the pros. I'm just kidding, guys. Y'all probably about to develop a hernia and blow it in the same second. Okay, so first up, Star Trek Online is a really unique MMORPG in the sense that it has packaged and combined several elements of big-name MMORPGs, and it's made all of these features work well together. STO is like a fusion of Anarchy Online, EVE, and the original Guild Wars. Goose, what the fuck are you talking about? Let's get into specifics. STO has the feel of Anarchy Online's combat, where it's not a ton of skills you unlock like you would in WoW, but instead a couple of attack skills based on the gun you're using will be added to your action bar. And you'll also get a couple of skills based on your character's class. And you can equip and swap between two weapons, both of which have their own two skills, as I mentioned. Aside from these skills, you can fill the rest of your action bar with what are called kits, which aren't permanent skills, but instead are pieces of equipment that you collect which provide some sort of boost in combat. This was very close to my experience in Anarchy Online, where the gun you wield provides you with 2 attacks, and then you get something for your class, and there's equipment that can be used as well. And as a result, the pacing of combat in STO is similar to Anarchy Online as well. Then we look over at the space combat, and EVE players will pick this game up quick, because there are similarities both in the way your ship is controlled, and the sheer amount of knowledge required to actually be a lethal force. If you love the depth of EVE, but don't want to get your shit bombed every time you go through a freaking gate, I mean, like, come on! Some guys just sit there for like 3 hours a day and just freaking bomb noobs when they come through. And yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that a couple dozen times, man. Back on topic, you EVE players will certainly feel right at home with how depthy STO's ship systems are. And I spent 400 hours playing EVE, and I'd say 25 of those hours were actually spent in my ship. The other 375 hours were spent watching my character's dead carcass float through space. I'm not bitter. I just want them to get hit by a bus, okay? The problem I made is I didn't take the time to learn the game, and EVE is certainly one of those games where you have to learn it. STO is much of the same here, where fights feel challenging and require knowledge of the enemy to survive. Then we have STO's similarities to Guild Wars, and this is apparent specifically in how you are managing not only your character, but a crew of NPCs as well, much like the heroes in Guild Wars. And these NPCs generally aren't just here for the heck of it. They feel like they are a part of your story because they actually have dialogue that adds to missions, and you are responsible for their leveling and loadouts, which is something I loved doing in the original Guild Wars. So that's a handful of great games, and Star Trek Online has done a great job of matching the quality of these particular systems all in one.
I made my guy ugly as balls. I mean, look at him. He's ugly as balls. The reason being, maybe I like role-playing a little bit, and I'm pretending I'm playing a captain's life. And if my guy's uglier than my wrinkled ballsack, that means he won't have to worry about being pursued by the ladies. And if he's not pursued by any of the ladies, he's gonna have to be a career guy, because what better way is there to get over the fact that you'll have to go your whole life without experiencing a good motorboat? Well, you become a captain and have aliens shooting at you every single day and be so busy trying to stay alive to worry about such things. Yeah, it's a good life.
Next up, all of the quests or missions are very long, and they feel completely different than other MMORPGs, which is a huge positive. Man, I've freaking probably killed like 500,000 freaking wolves by now. Could you imagine if there was an in-game PETA?
Please, role players, don't do it.
These missions actually resemble the format of a Mass Effect mission, but with the addition of space combat segments. Speaking specifically about the ground moments though, they do feel kind of like a Mass Effect mission, like you get transported to a planet in your ship, find out an evil alien race is kicking the shit out of the planet's inhabiting alien race, and you're trying to get to the bottom of it. You generally land on the planet for the sole purpose of completing that one mission you're working on, which is a lot like Mass Effect as well. I maybe got 15 to 20 missions done in the 20 hours I played, and some of the missions were awesome. There's this one bar fight with strippers.
Okay, good. I was just making sure my girlfriend wasn't here. Things can be taken out of context, you see, or in context in this case would be pretty bad too. Look, I'm just trying to make a relationship last for once, and girls get jealous about weird things, okay? So you can never be too safe. I follow 3 women on Instagram. My mother, because if I didn't, she'd give me the speech about how I owe her for giving birth to me. My aunt, out of pity because she has like 8 followers. And my girlfriend. Why do you think that is? Because you can never be too safe when you're in a relationship, okay?
Even when not comparing it to other MMORPG quests, it was just a ridiculously entertaining mission.
Get this guy.
Who?
Joe College, hit him hard.
Here, hold this.
What?
That's my boyfriend! Get that greaser!
This questing system feels so different to other typical fetch quest MMORPGs because, despite some missions feeling repetitive, this format of questing, where each mission can take 20 to 30 minutes, allows the game to more effectively deliver stories better than the typical fetch quest style that most MMOs adopt. Because of that fetch quest format, there's a lot of boring-ass filler quests of go here, kill this, just for the sake of giving you more XP. But with STO, giving us longer and more fleshed out quests allows us to feel like we're still working just as hard as other MMOs to level up, but without feeling like we're just pushing through filler garbage. Each mission feels like its own little adventure, mixed with ground and space fights, and a story that actually adds to the world's immersion. You accept each mission knowing you can look forward to a mashup of gameplay elements that are involved in the mission's narrative. Next pro. This game has so many pros, I love it. Usually you'll have very typical objectives. Go here, kill this, scan this, rub some salt into the wound by killing some more, and rinse and repeat. However, while the monotony of these objectives rears its stupid face during ground gameplay, you won't notice the tedium as much while engaging in the space parts of Star Trek Online, because these fights will regularly enough require a bit of tactical thinking, and maneuvering your ship in an effective way. And your experience during the space gameplay will likely vary greatly from other players, as a lot of factors play into how you will or will not succeed. For instance, certain guns will have a certain radius in which they can fire, or they'll be weaker against certain ship types. Your ship might be slower but stronger, or faster but weaker, which affects how you have to approach fights. And there are plenty of ship fittings that you can change up that affect a specific amount of stats out of a plethora of stats. And there are ships that you fight that will have completely different fittings that will nullify the fitting of your ship, which forces you to approach a completely fresh strategy to win, and so on. And furthermore, there's a lot of different scenarios that STO puts you through while fighting in space, whereas you can go through dozens of different zones on the ground, and all the fighting will still feel kind of the same. In your ship, though, you can be caught in an asteroid field with deadly toxic clouds, while turrets are launching missiles at you and little baby TIE fighter looking dudes are on your six. Don't worry, it's not real TIE fighters. I know it's Star Wars, okay? What I'm trying to say is they're tiny, though. They're little baby ships. I feel like that's the biggest party foul ever, to use a Star Wars thing to reference a Star Trek thing. Please be kind in the comments, I love you. So all of that covered the build up to the fight, but then there's the actual fight, where it's a whole new set of problems, whether it be focusing your ship's energy on its attack or shield output in a tough fight, or setting its energy to speed to get away from a tough fight, or just trying to figure out which items are most effective against this new race you've just encountered that's making you watch your crew die over and over like that scene from Doctor Strange.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
What is happening?
There are so many scenarios that keep you on your feet and make you eager to attempt a new strategy. And let me tell you, the satisfaction of overcoming a tough fight against another ship.
It's as satisfying to me as coming is. You know, as having sex with a woman and coming.
Moseying along to the next pro, I love how you're not just automatically the hero or the good guy. You are one person who is part of an ongoing story that doesn't have a clear right and wrong. And at times, if you take the time to listen or to read the dialogue, you'll sometimes feel like you're on the morally questionable side of this fight. Starfleet isn't a flawless organization. There's a reason why so many races have taken a hostile mentality with them. And as a Starfleet captain, you will be navigating through a journey that regularly makes you feel more bad for the characters you're going after than a sense of achieving justice. Once again, a typical MMORPG trope is you play the hero of the game, undoubtedly the good guy, so it's nice to take part in a story that not only has decades of development through the movies and TV shows, but also see the malevolence of your enemies come from the trauma the race has experienced in the past, which adds a lot of depth to the stories that would otherwise be as cookie cutter as us MMO players have grown accustomed to. This game and LOTRO are the only MMOs where I have actually taken the time to read the text or follow the narrative. And I wasn't even a Star Trek fan before playing this, so my desire to follow the story came purely from the rich quality of delivery. Now, just a heads up, the story has been consistently interesting, but a lot of reading is involved. And while I would say Star Trek Online has a lot more voice-acted lines than most MMOs in terms of outside of cutscenes, there's still a lot of times where you're reading through large text boxes, so it's really in your control on how much you want to get immersed in the world via the story. And the last pro. There's quite a bit of depth to character progression. There's skills, traits, and tons of different slots to put gear on both your character and your ship. So it's like those pregnant moms who are like, oh, I'm eating for two. Star Trek Online bears a lot of similarities to the birthing process, where you're always hunting for gear for two. It's like you're pregnant, and people are always like, careful what you eat, it'll go straight to the baby. Well, in Star Trek, it's like, careful what deflectors and warp drives you like, because they'll go straight to your ship. Should they really be going to your ship? And I mean, the progression is super meaty in STO, because not only do you have your own character skills to work on, which by the way can unlock even more progression options for your character if you focus on specific skill trees, but you can also unlock crewmates that you can promote to new positions on your ship, as well as teach them a ton of skills and abilities. And what's beautiful about STO's progression is leveling up and building a character, whether it be your own, or your ship, or your crew, doesn't feel half-assed in any of these different areas. All the things that you can upgrade in this game are fun to upgrade. Progression feels so fleshed out in all of these aspects. You really feel like you're building your own little efficient ship tribe, just like we get to see in the Star Trek shows. It's not even like Eve where we have to kind of pretend that there's 100 or so people on our ship, because we are single-handedly building our crew and managing their specifications on how they will help us in STO. And you know what? There's actually one more pro that I almost missed, and it's worth noting that I have queued up for about 5 group activities, so what would typically be called a dungeon, or a group instance in other words, and usually in older MMOs like this one, the lower level instances take a while to get a group for. But in Star Trek Online, apparently the beginning game is the new end game, because I've literally gotten put into an instance via the instance finder in less than 5 seconds every single time I've clicked on the queue up, with a full squad of players. This in itself has been a great sign of how healthy the population is, and then the Steam charts, which would only show Steam users that play this, have some pretty good numbers as well, so Star Trek Online definitely feels very active. Alright people, it's not all rainbows and more rainbows. How does that saying go? Okay, whatever, we're in the cons.
First officer, way to go! Just a little jealous, I'll admit.
Oh my gosh,
At least
so
now you'll get to boss us all around like you've always wanted.
Alright, first order of business. Shut up!
Yes, sir. Right away, sir. May I get you a Ractagino, sir?
Watch your fucking attitude, okay? Shields
Raising
up,
the
sir.
shields
There's
does
okay.
seem to be a reasonable precaution.
Yes, sir. It could be a trap.
I agree. Flores, raise shields.
Yeah, get that shit
Number
up.
1, get down to the transporter room.
Yeah,
You'll
alright.
oversee the rescue effort from there.
Fuck it, I don't care. I'll do it. I ain't about to complain. I'm his number 1.
Hang on!
My guy's just still sitting on the elevator. Holy fuck, this thing takes forever to move.
We still have weapons. I'll do what I can. For now, I need you to concentrate on getting those Klingons.
Promoted a guy who has no idea what he's doing to first officer. I can't imagine why this is happening right now. Okay, what's up, you badge? Oh, okay, you got y'all waiting for me. All right. Don't worry, I'm gonna get y'all your guns. Don't worry. Yeah, get in there. All right, boys, it's time to turn up.
Order your crew to surrender, Captain, or I will
what is
blow
that?
them out of the sky. It's your choice, Captain.
His first flight out,
Do
and
you
his
want
ship gets
these
jacked in 10 minutes. What a
children to
dummy.
die?
Very well.
He has to hand over his ship.
Direct hit. Decks. Shields.
Oh, stupid
Shields.
speed.
Fire our weapons.
There's a lot of stupid people in space,
Weapons
guys.
and shields are offline.
The horribly boring tutorial is the first thing I'm gonna talk about. Like, have The Office playing in the background.
Parkour! Michael, parkour! Parkour!
Or any other show that's not as good, because no show beats The Office. But be prepared to just be, like, so horribly bored. And it's annoying because STO is actually packed with rich content. So this beginning phase is really a disservice to the quality of the rest of the game. But you need to remember this quote from the boss-ass bitch that is Jean-Luc Picard. With the first link, the chain is forged. Of course, when Picard said it, he was talking about the damage caused from taking people's freedom away, but whatever, it works here too, so we're rolling with it. The tutorial is the first link before you get to the next 1,000 links, which forms like a very dope chain. You'd probably have to buy it in a Gucci store, because it's a quality chain, guys. Next up, the graphics have not aged well. Even with everything maxed, the terrain textures look generally pretty low res and unappealing. The lack of ambient occlusion makes the surfaces feel pretty flat, and there's also a lack of normals mapping, which gives the illusion of stuff like creases and indents on an object. These two effects, which play a huge part in pushing the quality of a game's visuals, feel pretty vacant, and EVE Online, a game that released in 2003, has done a far better job creating the immersive feel while in space than Star Trek Online, a game which came out 7 years later. The graphics in both ground and space gameplay don't do STO any favors in terms of immersion, and I hope a high-res texture pack is released for the game, similar to the one that got released for Lord of the Rings Online, which made the graphics light years more crisp looking than STO's, and LOTRO released in 2007. Next con, the quest objectives all too regularly boil down to the most repetitive aspects of every MMORPG you've played. There's some combat, you go here and use the action button on this to trigger the next group of enemy AI, kill them, do the same, rinse and repeat. Like I've said, the space gameplay makes up for this monotony, and there are enough awesome sequences to make this issue feel less apparent, but it's apparent nonetheless, especially to a guy who's been around the block with MMORPGs. I'm an MMORPG slut, dropping my pants and letting them get up in it. By the way, sorry for the low graphics quality at this part. I am actually terrified of scorpions, and I thought lowering the graphics would make them less real, and therefore less scary. Nope, still cried, still reached a dangerous level of decibels when screaming. Now to quickly reflect on the weaker part of the gameplay, the ground segments. Ground missions so far have been pretty linear, a point A to B kind of deal, and there have been only a few times where I've felt compelled to explore the neighboring land, or even been given land nearby to explore. I don't know if this is consistent with later gameplay, I really doubt it is, but this is more of a heads up saying you might not get that vast feeling that most MMOs have when it comes to the land stuff when starting out. Now for the final verdict. It would be incredible if a modern MMORPG released with this level of depth to the game's systems, because while Star Trek Online excels in offering such a beautifully complex experience in all of its facets, the experience as a whole feels a bit outdated, and I think most of this can be attributed to both the graphics and the interface feeling a bit archaic.
But if you aren't a graphics snob, which I thought I wasn't, but then I played this game and I was like, oh shit, it's happening. I'm becoming an entitled gamer. But if you don't suck like me and the visual presentation of a game doesn't bug ya, then Star Trek Online is a game that needs to at least be tried. I mean, I know I'm gonna get flamed for even complaining about the graphics of an almost decade-old MMO, but don't forget, I'm ranking the game relative to how it plays now, in 2019, compared to the other offerings on the market. At first, the gameplay will match the graphics. It'll feel simple, unexciting, and typical to every other MMORPG. Just keep on boldly going where many a man have gone before because thousands of people have played this game. But just keep playing. I promise you what starts off feeling like an unsatisfying experience really begins to take off around the 10-hour mark, where a ton of the game starts opening itself up to you. The game's kinda shy and it's like, haha, I don't want to show you too much right now. And just when you're over its shit, the game's like, alright, chill, let me pop a few new features your way, and you're like, this shit's pretty dope actually. And think about it this way, I hit level 20 and the fun started. Leading up to level 20, a little painful, wanted to drive my ship into a black hole and kill my whole crew to make a point to literally nothing, but it would have made me feel better. But the point is, I hit level 20 and the game became intriguing. Tons of features were fully available to me and ready to make my experience extremely unique to every other player. Now compare this to other MMORPGs. Most of them only really get interesting after maybe 10 to 15 levels before the level cap. And even then, that's not always the case, as some MMOs just flat out were built to purely deliver fun in the max level endgame. So while Star Trek Online follows suit to most MMOs and the starting phase is as boring as can be, the upside is Star Trek Online quickly separates itself from this all too familiar formula by giving us a lot of goodies to mess around with sooner rather than later. The amount of times I've logged in and literally just messed around with my crew, my ship loadouts, my unlocks and skills is probably right on par with how many times I've logged in to actually do missions and level up. Should you play STO if you're not a Star Trek fan? Yes, absolutely try it. And don't try it for like 2 hours, give it a fair shake, because it gets a lot better. And Star Trek Online offers challenging gameplay and an abundance of features that can make up for the story if you aren't enjoying it. Though as someone who came into this game thinking Star Trekkers were like the nerdiest nerds of society, I am proud to say I've joined their ranks because of this game. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you guys make a decision on whether or not this game is worth a shot, and if it did help you, consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. And if you'd like to support my content, click that like button. Also, if there's anything you guys are wondering about in particular in regards to this game, or you just want to say what up, hit me up on Twitter or drop a comment on here. Awesome, I'm out. Take care, guys.